My name is Wendy Aston, and this is my screencast-o-matic for my action research plan focusing on positive discipline in the classroom. My critical question I'm focusing on is how can I use ClassDojo to foster a more positive learning environment? The story behind the project. The Action Research Project came about because there was a growing need to address various behavior issues in my classroom. Having used ClassDojo for several years now, I noticed that students weren't responding as well to the program as in years past. So I started to wonder, is it something that I am doing? Are the kids just not interested anymore? But I needed to get down to the bottom of the situation. So one of the main things I needed to do was to kind of question my own practices to see if I'm using best practices and if I'm using the most effective approach with the ClassDojo program. And also, as part of our TEKS standard in the state of Georgia, focusing and creating a positive learning environment for students is also essential. Thus, behavior kind of influences procedures in the classroom, and procedures influence behavior. So that's sort of how the question came about. My hunch behind the study is that ClassDojo can be used as a positive tool, or what some people like to refer to as a shame-based tool, where you focus only on negative behavior aspects that the students are doing in class. I feel that maybe I am possibly spending too much time focusing on negative behaviors, thus affecting the procedures in my classroom, instead of focusing on more of the positive things that are happening. And also, typically at the beginning of the year, students do get some input in the procedures and the rules that are set up on Dojo. But this year, with the way classes were set up and our school year kind of got off to a rocky start, the kids didn't get as much input into setting up ClassDojo as they would have in years past. So I'm thinking that possibly, had I given them more input and allowed them to come up with maybe some of the rewards and reinforcements, their response to the ClassDojo system might be a little different. My interest in the research is classroom behavior affects literally everything. If students are off task and not engaged, learning typically isn't taking place. So a positive learning environment is essential to student success. Not to mention, using best practices reflects in your classroom as well. So if you're using best practices, your students are embracing that and also showing that in their work. And also, if current practices aren't working, then you need to take time as a professional to reflect on what is happening and make changes as needed. So the methodology behind my research project. I'm planning on doing a self-study, and I want to collect several types of data throughout the research. One of the biggest things is I want to take anecdotal notes and observe how students are reacting when ClassDojo either rewards or negative consequences are giving out. Is there a certain, comment being made by students? Is there a certain facial expression? What is happening once behaviors are being handed out? Also, I want to get student feedback through surveys, and I want to know, what do they even think about the Classroom Dojo system in general? Is it something that they think helps us in the classroom? Would they like more input into how points are given, how rewards are set up? I generally want to know their overall feelings. And then I would also like to survey parents to find out how parents are utilizing ClassDojo. Parents have the option to download and receive a daily behavior report from their students. And ClassDojo also has a two-way message system where parents can message me as the teacher and I can message them. So I'm curious how parents are perceiving the behaviors that are notated each day and how they overall feel the system is working for them. And additionally, I want to gather data reports from ClassDojo so I can take a look at the frequency of behaviors that I'm notating and what category those fall in. Are they falling into more classroom procedural things such as being off task, that sort of thing? Or am I focusing more on school-wide rules, so hallway behavior, and if these points are positive or negative? The purpose of data collection is I really want to evaluate how I'm using ClassDojo. Am I using ClassDojo in a way that is creating a positive learning environment in my classroom, or am I focusing more on the negative aspects of my classroom, and is that overall affecting how my classroom is being run? And I want to be able to view ClassDojo from more than just the teacher's standpoint. I want to look at it from a student's perspective and a parent's perspective so that I can sort of see all sides of how things are playing out. And I also want to look at how ClassDojo affects the procedures and the environment in my classroom. Again, am I creating a positive environment where students are feeling successful and feel like they want to be a part of the classroom community, or am I being too shameful towards students with how I'm using ClassDojo? For keeping up with the data, I'm going to take my anecdotal notes in a written journal, just a small little notebook or notepad, and then while my journal's not in use or not in my possession, it will be locked and secured in my personal file cabinet. And once I have transcribed my notes digitally, I plan on putting them in the Office 365 digital format and stored in my Office 365 online account, which is password encrypted, and I only have access to the password. I'm going to collect my data in 1 week cycles over a period of 2 weeks. So 2 weeks of data collection, and then after the 2 week data collection period, I'm going to spend a week in analysis and reflection of the data I've collected. One, to see if I need to make adjustments to what I'm collecting, and two, to see if what I'm collecting tends to line up with the critical question I had originally stated. And I'm going to repeat the data collection and analysis cycle 3 times. After I've collected my data, of course, it's important to analyze, synthesize, and deconstruct data. So after each time I've collected data, I want to be looking for various trends that I see in the data, if there are any gaps in the data, any discrepancies. I want to compare that to see how all the data triangulates with each other and if the data aligns with any of the thoughts I've read from my distant colleagues. And of course, as I am working with minors in my classroom, permission is going to be necessary. So I'm going to obtain written permission for all of my participants. I'll be notifying the parents via ClassDojo with a message, and also permission forms will be sent home in writing in the Students Thursday folders. And additionally, I'll need to get approval from the Mercer IRB, and after that process is complete, I can forward it to my school system in Cobb County for their approval. Confidentiality is very important. During research, again, all of my written materials will be kept under lock and key in my personal file cabinet. I'm also going to analyze my data online in Office 365, and it will be password protected. And any printed documentation that I use will have the participant names removed, so confidentiality is protected. I hope to gather a lot of meaningful results. What I hope to get from this research, bottom line, is I really want an opportunity to reflect upon what I'm doing in my classroom. While I've used this in the past, ClassDojo as a behavior system, I want to make sure that it's still a program that's the right fit for my current students. I also want to be able to see the ClassDojo program and the procedures in my classroom through the eyes of more than just myself, the teacher. I want to see it through the eyes of my students and through the eyes of my parents. And plus, hopefully, overall, this is an opportunity for me to make adjustments to my instruction, adjustments to my procedures in my classroom, and even, if necessary, adjustments to the ClassDojo system and allow more student input to see if that overall reflects a more positive learning environment. Sharing my research, my 5th grade colleagues use ClassDojo, at least about 50% of them do. Some are more adamant about it than others. So I would like to share my findings first and foremost with the 8 classroom teachers that I have on my 5th grade team, not only just to kind of see how things are going in that classroom, but to see if they're having some of the same challenges I thought I've had this year, and to also see if any of my research that I find out could impact some of their practices. Since our school is really looking at transitioning toward a school-wide behavioral system, I want to share the results from my research with my school-level administrators. And then each summer before the new school year starts, our county does a leadership and learning kickoff that showcases best practices, most of the time with new teachers, but sometimes often with veteran teachers as well. I would like to share some of my results that I have found with them. And thank you for listening to my presentation, and I look forward to receiving any feedback.